Matthew chapter 1, verse 23, we read these words, "Behold, the virgin shall be with child and shall bear a son. And they shall call his name Emmanuel," which translated means God with us. God with us. That's the title of this series that we're going to be focusing on throughout the month of December. Those are powerful words. Think about who God is. And then he's with you. Because he wants to be. Because he is. Like he's never not with you. He's omnipresent. He's everywhere all the time. Powerful, powerful words. And I want to challenge us all this Christmas to live in this reality. Just understanding that God is with us. This is not just a holiday term that we use. This is deep and rich theology that can impact the very course and direction of your life. Tell your neighbor right now, God is with me. That was kind of half-hearted. Try it again. See if you can be a little more confident. Just fake like you believe it. Try it again. One more time. God is with me. Do it. Isn't that something? Kind of hard for some of us to say. Kind of hard for some of us to say. You know, no matter what we face in life, God is with us. Look around the room today. And as many people as you see, there's at least that many different things that are being dealt with. And with all of those things present in just this small room, God is in the middle of every one of those things. Right in the middle of it. Right in the middle. So in this series, we're going to be taking a look at how God is with us in the valleys, those places where we face times of battle and loneliness and desperation, how he's with us in the wilderness, representative of the trials and the hardships and the wanderings that we go through in life. We're going to look at how he's with us in the storms of life, where those difficult times that just kind of seem to come out of nowhere. God is with us through it all. And today, we're going to talk about in the valleys. God is with you in the valleys that you are going through. Now, as we follow God, it is easy to believe that God is with us when we're on what we call the mountaintops. I'm just a person, by the way, who doesn't like the mountaintops. Here's why. The weather is worse, the wind is worse, the oxygen is less. It's less comfortable by a long ways. But I understand what we're saying in Christianity when we talk about, I just want to be on the mountaintop. Like, if you've ever been on a mountain, at some higher elevations, Pikes Peak, 13,000 feet or 12,000, whatever it is down there in Colorado, 14,000. I mean, oh my goodness, get me down, get me off of here. They got to check your brakes on your way down the mountain to make sure they're not getting too hot. Who wants to be on the mountaintop all the time? But I understand what we're saying spiritually when we say on the mountaintop. What we're saying is, I don't want to be in the valley. That's really what we're saying. I want to be where it's quote, end quote, normal. And who of us doesn't want to not be in a valley? But it's easy to sense that God is with us when you get a raise at work. When your team wins. So easy to believe that God is with you. When your kids start sleeping through the night, and they're 16 and 17 and you've been waiting. When your husband doesn't snore for 3 consecutive minutes during the night. Like, it's really easy to get excited and know that God is with you in those 3 minutes. It's really exciting when you come to church and you find a parking spot, especially like a church like ours where, with this facility, we don't have parking. They built this place to seat like 150, 180 people back in the day, 150. And they gave us 9 parking spots. Like, this is how zoning worked back in 1950. Isn't that great? So now, when the weather's turning, we all like to get a good spot. And it's easy, man. Lord, you were with me. You weren't with everybody else that's coming to church, but you were with me. I got a good parking spot, and I did not have to walk on the ice. God bless them as they slip today, but you are with me. Like, it's easy for us to see that God is with us when we're on the mountaintop. But it seems harder when we're in the valleys, doesn't it? It seems a lot harder to believe that God is with us when we're in the valleys, when we're facing some scares and some hurts, when we've received bad news and it's in our marriage, it's about our health, it might be about our kids. We go to the doctor and we get that news. Wow. Valleys are places, however, and we're going to discover this today, where God wants to build your faith. Here's the big idea that we're going to be unpacking today. You may enjoy God on the mountain, but you get to know Him in the valley. You may enjoy God on the mountaintops when things are going great, but we all know, if we've walked with God for any period of time, that it is in the valleys where we get to know Him. We're going to be in Psalm chapter 84 today. Psalm chapter 84, and just 3 verses. Now, this psalm the Psalms are poetry, first of all, and so you can't read this like narrative. You read it like you read poems, like Edgar Allan Poe. How many of you liked to read Edgar Allan Poe? The Raven, quoth the Raven, nevermore. Don't you just wish you could have heard Poe on YouTube reading how he wanted that to sound? So this is poetry, and the psalm, and they would also put it to music. Psalms, songs. So the children of Israel would use this song as they were making their pilgrimage on their way to Jerusalem, probably for one of the great yearly festivals of the year, probably the Festival of Shelters. Now, the Festival of Shelters is on the Jewish calendar. The Festival of Shelters or Tabernacles, it's all about understanding that God tabernacled with us, John chapter 1. And that we are here on this earth, but we will go to be with Him. And so that's kind of the context of the heart of an Israelite as they would be singing this song on their way to Jerusalem. We're going to read verses 5, 6, and 7. How blessed is the man whose strength is in you, in whose heart are the highways to Zion, or Jerusalem. Passing through the valley of Baca, they make it a spring. The early rain also covers it with blessings. They go from strength to strength. Every one of them appears before God in Zion. So, the Valley of Baca, if you have a reference Bible or a study Bible, there's probably a little footnote there that will take you to the bottom of your page or the middle of your page or whatever and tell you that the Valley of Baca, it could also be translated the Valley of Tears, the Valley of Weeping, the Valley of Sorrow, the Valley of Loss. That's what Baca means. Now, in Israel, in Old Testament times and in New Testament times as well, going through the desert was always a difficult time. If you were going through a desert, it would be impossible to go through the desert without facing hardship of some kind. But the heart of the Israelite was to get to the holy city, that city of refuge that Jerusalem was, where they could celebrate with the entire nation God. I mean, how was their heart? And so regardless of the trials that they faced, they wanted to get there. But here's this reference to the Valley of Baca. And that's kind of the hinge pin of what we're talking about today. So what do we need to know if we are in one of life's valleys? Because most of us probably are, or we're probably headed for one, or maybe we're coming out of one. What do we need to know? This psalm will help us. We're going to notice 2 truths about valleys, first of all, and then we're going to talk about 2 things that we have to do in the valleys if we are going to really not just think it, but live like God is with us. So, what are the 2 truths about valleys? Number 1, God's blessing is there. God's blessing is in the valley. Do you want out now? We hate the valleys. But did you hear what the psalmist said? Blessed is the man whose strength is in the Lord. Blessed is the man whose strength is in the Lord and whose heart is set on Zion. Even if he goes through the valley of weeping and mourning and sorrow and tears and all of that, blessed is the man. Then in verse 7, what does he say again? He says they go from strength to strength. Every one of them appears before God. That's blessing. It's the blessing. Christmas vacation for you. Glad to help you. All right? It is God's blessing that is there. And many times we don't want to, we forget. We just want out of this valley that we're in because we want to enjoy God. And what God is saying, yeah, I want you to enjoy me, but you'll enjoy me more if you know me more. And I can't teach you on the mountaintop what I can teach you in the valley. And there are times in your life when God will sovereignly lead you through the valley. And what you need to know, one of the things you need to know, whatever the valley is that you might be in today, is that God is there and His blessing is upon you. He is pronouncing blessing on you because He knows that your heart is fixed on Him. Now, if you don't know God personally, listen to this statement. I really like this statement. It's not mine, but I love it. If you don't know God, then everything you have is all you have. Good luck with your valleys. Good luck. If you don't know Christ, then everything you have, that's all you have. To try to get through this valley that you're in. But that's not what the psalmist said. We're not trying to do this on our own. The blessing is that God is with us. The blessing is that we are not alone. If we try to do things on our own, if we try to leave God out of the valleys and just try to escape, we'll be left feeling exhausted. We'll be left feeling like we can't take it anymore. We'll be left feeling like the weight is too much to bear. But the Bible doesn't say, blessed is the man who makes it on his own, on his way to pleasing God. No, it says, blessed is the man whose strength is in the Lord as he goes through the valley of Baca. God's blessing is with you in the valley. We are not independent people. You were never created to make it on your own. You need God. And we all know that in the valleys, man, I need to know that God is with me. How many of you, see, I'm okay with thinking that God is with me in the valleys. The problem is when I don't sense it in my spirit or feel it. And that's exactly what we're talking about. When you don't feel something, you have to know the truth. And the truth is that God's blessing is on you. If your mind is stayed on Him, if your heart is fixed on Him, God's blessing is on you. He is with you. Paul said it this way in 2 Corinthians chapter 12. He said, each time God said to me, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness, and so now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. You are right. You can't make it through this valley on your own. You need God. You need other people. It is the blessing of God on you that is going to help carry you through the valley. You may enjoy God on the mountain, but you get to know Him in the valley. Secondly, not only is God's blessing there, but number two, valleys are temporary. They are temporary. Isn't that good news? Woo! Collective sigh of relief right now. Collective sigh of relief. Look at verse 6. The first two words, passing through. Passing through. I want you to know that the valley you're in is not your destination. The children of Israel, when they had to travel and make their pilgrimages to Jerusalem for the feasts and things, they understood that the wilderness, the desert, the valleys, this is not where I'm ultimately headed. This is temporary. This is temporary. And yeah, sorry, I don't have a date when it's going to end. I don't have a date, but here's what I know. In the valleys is where I can get to know God. And every day that I stay in the valley and I choose to press in and lean into the heart of God, I get to know Him more. And the more I know Him, the stronger I will be. I can't control the valley, but it's temporary. In Psalm 23 and verse 4, most of us have heard the 23rd Psalm. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, the valley of the shadow of death, some translations say, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You see, to get to Jerusalem, the city of refuge, the Israelites would sometimes have to pass through the valley of Baca, the valley of tears. valley of trouble, the valley of sorrow. It's temporary. And what the devil wants you to believe is that God has abandoned you and he has left you in the valley. That is not true. That might be how you feel, but your feelings are not faith. Faith is bigger than your feelings. And when the lie of your feelings is starting to dominate your heart and your perspective, you have to remind yourself of the truth that God's blessing is with me in this valley, and this is temporary. This is not going to last forever. Here's the truth about valleys. The way out of the valley is through the valley. The way out is through. God is not going to pluck you out with a helicopter. That movie was 127 hours, 124 hours, whatever it is, about the guy who went spelunking or whatever down in, I think it was in Nevada or Utah. James Franco plays the character. It was on Paul Harvey back in the day. How many of you miss Paul Harvey? Man, that was just good, man. AM radio, got that static crackle in the back. Who needs all this digitized stuff? Give me a good old AM radio. But this even made Paul Harvey, but he goes biking, and he ends up by himself, and he gets his arm caught between a boulder and the wall of the cavern that he's in. I forget, he's there for 127 hours. He ends up cutting off the bottom part of his arm with his own pocket knife, drinking his own urine to keep him alive as he tried to figure things out. It is a fascinating movie. True story. Nobody came to rescue him. He cut his arm off, and he had to walk through the valley of those caverns to get to help. And you may feel like you are pinned against a cavern wall and that the devil has you pinned and you can't get out or any. I want to let you know that God is with you, and it's going to be temporary. This is not what God destined you for, living in the valley. You are passing through the valley. You may enjoy God on the mountain, but you get to know God in the valley. And so, if we know this about valleys, that God's blessing is there and that valleys are temporary, what must I do? What must I do? And I'm not saying that your works are going to save you here, but I am saying that in your relationship with God, God will do his part, but faith is you doing your part and me doing my part. If somebody's saying, oh God, I need you to help me pay my bills, and they're unwilling to work, they have no faith. You got to go work. Yeah, show me some faith and watch God come through. So in the valleys, two things. Number one, you got to get your mind right. We read that word in verse 5, whose heart is fixed on God. Blessed is the man in whose heart are the highways of Zion, whose strength is in the Lord. Now that word heart can be translated mind, and many translations translate it that way. And this is, we could say, get your heart right. But really what we're trying to say is get your mind right. You got to think right. You got to think right. And he says, what joy there is. There is blessing for you if you'll fix your mind on God. Blessed are those whose minds are fixed on God. Maybe you don't know a lot about God. Well, just start getting to know God. Learn a little bit. Learn a little bit. Learn a little bit. When you were a baby and your folks were feeding you, how did you get to be so big? How did you get to be an adult? How did that happen? Well, your folks fed you. They didn't feed you more than you needed. You had your fill, and then you come back from that's the way it works. Same thing is true with knowing God. In the valleys, we've got to fix our minds on God. We've got to get our mind right. And in the New Testament, Paul said this to the Colossians in chapter 3 and verse 1. Since you've been raised to new life with Christ, so since that's true about you, if you're a follower of Jesus, set your sights on the realities of heaven. That's about fixing your mind, getting your mind right. Where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. To the Philippian church in Philippians 4 and verse 8, Paul said, and now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. I'm on this journey personally where I'm trying to change the way that I think. I want to be a more positive person. I'm not talking about unicorns and, Lucky Charm marshmallows and Pollyanna stuff. But I am talking about being a positive person who doesn't see problems, but a person who sees opportunities. A person who refuses to say anything negative. I want to get there. I am not there because I've spent a half a century with a mind that is fixed on, well, it's just the way life is. And God says, no, you have a choice. Nobody tells you how to think or what to think about. The way I like to think about it is parking lots. I can park the car of my mind in any parking lot I wish in the city of life. And for some reason, I hate it. I can't stand it, but there I sit in that parking lot of negativity so many days. And God says, you got the fob, you got the car. Why don't you change the parking lot? Why don't you go to a different store? I can do that? Yeah. The choice is yours as to what you are going to think about when you're in the valley. And the challenge that we're given is to get our mind right. Stop looking at the valley walls. Stop looking at the parched desert and start setting your mind on God. The children of Israel, as they would come through the heat, the desert, the lack of water, all of this, they knew Jerusalem was coming. They knew that the city was coming. They knew the celebration was coming. But they had to get their minds right. And in the same way, you and I have to get our minds right. What you think about and what you tell yourself, these things matter. Your current circumstances might be in the valley, but you can have a mind that is set on God. Your heart might be anxious, but you can have a mind that is fixed on God's truth. Your soul might be aching, but you can have a mind that is fixed on God. You can get your mind right. Your emotions might be racing, but you can fix your mind on God. It's not easy, and the devil will fight you Pastor, it didn't happen. I tried for 12 seconds, and it did not happen. God didn't give me the victory. I think I know the problem. You got no fortitude. You really going to sit there and take this bullying from the devil? Is that really what you're going to do? Or are you going to stand up and start saying, no, what you're telling me is lies. This valley is not my destination. This valley is what I'm passing through. And by the way, this valley that you think is my doom, this is where God's blessing resides. And my mind is fixed on Him. If you do the worst that you can do to me, devil, that's take my life on this earth. I will be with the God of heaven for all eternity. You, on the other hand, your eternity is fixed. You are not there yet, but devil, you're going to burn forever in the lake of fire with everybody who rejects God on earth. You see, that's just a completely different perspective in terms of how you fight the battles. Fix your mind on God. Jerusalem represented that place of peace, and the psalmist was thinking about all of God's goodness that awaited him in the city of refuge, just like you and I are waiting for God's goodness to show itself as we pass through the valley. Get your mind right. You may enjoy God on the mountain, but you get to know Him in the valleys, and you got to fix your mind. Get your mind right. Number 2, dig a well. Now, this is a metaphor. Dig a well. Who do we got here that can do it for us? I was talking to a friend this last week, a friend from Casper, and he's got some family that is thinking about buying some property and maybe building a house, and they have to go this particular place where this family member wants to build a house. They have to go down 300 feet for their well, and I was just like, that is insane. That's insane. But do you see what the psalmist says here? The psalmist says here, he says, passing through the valley of Baca, they make it a spring. Now stop and consider what is being said. Desert, valley of Baca, weeping, tears, sorrow. No water, parched, dry. They, not God, God's not going to dig your well. You dig the well. Dig the well. I don't have a shovel. Then bloody your fingertips and make, even if all you can create is a divot in your spirit, then get down on that dirt and begin to dig, because you got to dig a well. We talk about one of the culture statements, the kind of people we want to be here at New Life are the kind of people who dig the ditch, Old Testament as well. But it all speaks of faith. We want to be people of faith. They, what does it say? They make it a spring. So they dig the well, and then what happens? Next phrase, very important. The early rain covers it with blessing. Who makes it rain? God. Here is the promise that is embedded here in the valley, that if you dig it, God will fill it. If you will dig the well, if you will keep your mind fixed and keep your mind right, fixed on God, and if you dig the well, it doesn't have to even be deep. God is going to send rain, and He's going to fill it. You don't have to fill your own well. You don't have to fulfill the promises that God has made for you. Get down on your hands and knees if you have to, and just start digging at that dirt that won't move, and move those rocks, and use a rock, and bloody your hands. For crying out loud, what price are you willing to pay as you're in the valley to know God? He has not abandoned you. He has not left you. And Christmas reminds us, this is Emmanuel, God with us. He is with you. Dig a well. Because the tired, well then, fine. Fry in the sun. We are so spiritually lazy sometimes. And we got to dig down deep. The devil is crushing you with your lack of faith, with your lack of initiative in the Spirit. God, I will do what it takes to dig a well to see you fill it. God promises in the New Testament, James chapter 4 and verse 8, if you draw near to me, I will draw near to you. In Jeremiah 29:13, if you seek me, God said, you will find me. If you dig it, God will fill it. What might you be able to do? Maybe start with fasting. Just skip a meal for a day, and instead of eating, spend 20 minutes in prayer. It's like, God, this meal time where I'm usually having my bologna and cheese sandwich. My mom used to make me mayonnaise and cheese sandwiches. I don't know how. That's what you do when you're poor folk. You know, Bill Anderson has a great Christmas album. I listen to it every year. And he's got on there's a whole lot of people looking down their noses at me because I didn't come from a wealthy family. It's a great song. And you should YouTube that and then buy the album. It'll bless your life. Bill Anderson. There's a Christmas album from back in like the 50s or 60s or something. But we were poor folk. And my mom, I'd say, Mom, can we go climb the trees behind the school? And she'd slap together, 2 pieces of bread with some mayonnaise and a slice of Velveeta cheese, and we'd go climb that tree, and we'd sit on that branch, and we'd eat our cheese sandwich. That's so disgusting. That's just so disgusting. But that's what Mom did. That's what Mom did for us. Why? Because that's what she had. That's what she had. And so maybe for you, you need to just not have the cheese sandwich and fast a meal and say, God, this is my attempt to just make a divot in the ground, the valley floor here that I'm in, because God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I'm going. I can't seem to find the end of this valley. But God, I know that you are with me. I need to hear your voice. And if God doesn't answer you the way you want or the way that you desire to see it on Monday, maybe you should try it again on Tuesday. Friend, it's going to test your resolve. How much do you want to know God? Because God already knows everything there is to know about you. And God will let you know him as much as you are willing to give him. And maybe it's not about the problem you're facing. Maybe it's about your relationship with God. God doesn't punish us with valleys. We pass through valleys. God instructs us in the valleys. And he is with us. Isn't that good news? They make it a spring. They get their mind right and say, hey, wait a minute. If we just dig a little hole here, let's see what happens. Let's see what God will do. And God sends rain to a place where it doesn't rain. You see, that's the heart of your God. And that's what God did when he sent Christ that first Christmas, fulfilling the Old Testament prophecies that he would send his son. You may enjoy God on the mountain, but you get to know God in the valleys. And friend, I want to encourage you this Christmas to know that God is with you. You may not feel it, but you don't live by your feelings, you live by faith. I'm going to ask the worship team if they'd return. We're going to prepare to close today. Grab that Connect card in the seat back of the chair in front of you if you've already begun to fill one out because you're a guest with us or whatever. On the back side at the top is the My Response section, and there's one little box there. And next to that box it says, I know I need to respond to what I've heard today. I can look at a room like this. I can look at all of our lives and the human experiences that we encounter storms. We go through wilderness times. And we most certainly walk through valleys. And some of you this Christmas, you're just in a valley. It's no fault of your own. In fact, you're on the way to the city of refuge. You're on your way to what God has destined for you. You're on your way to the place of celebration. And I'm here to tell you today that God has not abandoned you, that he is with you, that what you're experiencing right now is temporary. The prophets God had not sent a fresh word through the prophets for over 4 centuries by the time that Jesus came. Israel was walking through a valley as a nation. And then he breaks the silence by speaking to Zechariah in the temple about the coming of the Messiah. And that's why Christmas is such good news. You see, God never says that you won't go through valleys. The good news is you just never have to go through them alone. And today, if you want people at the very least praying with you for whatever valley you might be in, I encourage you to check that box and drop it in to the Connect box as you head out today. Maybe in your life today it's dark. Maybe today there's a storm brewing. Maybe you're in trouble. Maybe you're feeling weak. I have good news for you. It's the message of Christmas. Emmanuel, which translated means God is with us. God is with us. He is your light in the darkness. He is your peace in the storm. He is your joy in trouble. And he is your strength when you are weak. God is with you. You may enjoy God on the mountain, but you get to know him in the valley. Psalm 139, verses 7 through 10 says this: where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the dawn, if I dwell in the remotest part of the sea, even there your hand will lead me, and your right hand will lay hold of me. What a God! What a God! The God who is with us in the valleys. You're just passing through, my friend. You are a pilgrim. You're on a journey, and God is with you today. We're going to sing one more song after I pray here, just as an anthem of joy and celebration as we leave. I'm going to ask those who've been asked to help us with prayer this morning, if they'd come at this time, just stand off to the sides here for a moment. I'm going to pray in just a moment. If you need prayer today for anything we talked about, or maybe something totally different, I encourage you to find us here at the front, because we'd love to pray with you. We'd love to pray with you. So Jesus, today, we give you thanks. We give you praise. God, you are so good. And many of us, God, we're just walking through these valleys. we've made the mistake of thinking that they're our destination, that this is our lot. And God, we're so thankful for your truth that sets us free. We're so thankful, God, that your blessing is all around us in the valley. We're so thankful that it's temporary. And God, we want our minds to be right. We want to dig the well that we need to dig, God, even if it's just a little divot, because we trust that even where it doesn't rain in the Spirit, you will send rain when we step out in faith. And so, God, by your sweet and tender mercies this Christmas season, I pray that you would open the floodgates of heaven, that you would pour out upon the valley floors of every life that is represented here in this room today. And God, saturate us afresh and anew with a fresh understanding in our spirit that you are with us. In